All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the fourth and final session at today's Systems and Workflows Bootcamp. We're going to get started in just a few minutes' time. I'm just going to hang on and let a few more people join before we do. Whilst we're waiting, if you can go to the chat box, it's just located at the bottom of Zoom. You should all be familiar with how the chat works right now. And if you can just share in the chat box, what is it that you're looking to learn from this session? So we've got Helen here from Futrli. She's going to be talking all things advisory systems. So it'd be really great if you could just let us know in the chat box as we're waiting to get started. What is it that you're looking to learn or to get from this session? What is it that you're hoping to take away? And that will really just help us to understand who's here and what you're looking for. Great, I can see more people coming in. So Neil, great session so far at the moment using SIFT, but keen to understand Futrli in more detail. Perfect. I think you're in the right place, Neil.
I'm not doing a big, just to be, as a bit of a cat, I'm not doing a big product sell. I really am talking about sales processes and how to go with advisory. So pick up with me afterwards for specific Futrli stuff.
Nice.
You guys.
Angela says wanting to learn the best approach to advisory. Yeah, I think we're in the right place. Vijay says what is meant by advisory services and how can it be standardized? Yeah, I think we're going to be going through all of this in just a second. So let me go through my introductory slides as we're waiting for a few more people to join. So a few housekeeping rules. You might have already heard these already. If you haven't, they're just really simple. Mute your phone, close your emails, lock your door, and most importantly, focus. Make the most of the next 60 minutes that you have with Helen. If you have any questions as we're going through this, please can you use the Q&A box? That's just going to help us to keep track of all of the questions as they come through. But like you've been doing in all the other sessions, feel free to talk amongst yourselves in the chat box. It's great to see you all engaging and sharing ideas and tips. So please feel free to use the chat for that purpose. Remember to get social. I've seen a few people sharing posts on LinkedIn with the hashtag Systems and Workflow Bootcamp. I'd love to see a few more of you doing that. Send us some selfies, some pictures. Show us your work from home setups if you're still working from home, or if you're in the office, show us the office setup. And don't forget to hang around until the end. We have some giveaways and things that we're going to be sharing with you at the end of the session as well. So today's agenda, this is the final session of the day. We're saving the best till last, I hope. And it's all about advisory systems and how you can position and sell advisory services to your clients. If you haven't already, don't forget to check out our workflow template library. We do actually have a template in there from Futrli. There's a number of other templates available, really just to give you some systems and processes to start within your firm. If you're starting from nothing, or if you're looking to reinvent the systems and processes, then these are a really great jumping off point for you. So introductions out of the way. Helen, I'm going to hand things over to you for your session on advisory systems.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. All right, let me just share my screen. I'm terrible at tech. I sell tech, talk about tech, terrible at using these things, so bear with me. Okie dokes, I'm hoping, can you see my screen, Jordan? Just wave up. Okay, fab. Hello, everyone. I just had a quick scroll through those on the call, so there's a few names I know in there. There's a few I don't. So hello, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Helen, COO here at Futrli. I've got over 25 years selling experience. I know I don't look that old. And actually 20 of those have been working with accountants. I just have seemed to have worked with you guys my whole career. And my mission today is to impart some simple techniques and strategies that are going to help you scale advisory services. And I'm not making it about our products. You know that we have advisory products. I'm sure that hopefully you know that if our marketing's doing its job. This is more about you guys and actually processes and strategies that if you adopt, they will find you'll find it be more effective in actually rolling these things out. And actually it could be used for rolling all sorts of new technology or new services out. So it's very much a broad brush approach to upselling advisory services, but actually upselling anything. As Jordan said, questions at the end. I've definitely left time for it. I don't think I'll use the full hour. So if you're hungry, you don't need to hang on too much longer, but just whack the questions into the box and I will go through them at the end and Jordan will holler them at me. Okay, folks. First up, one thing I know that is a common theme or challenge for most of you is how to scale advisory services, which is why so many of you are on the call today. There are so many hurdles with any firm that's setting out to do with this. The core one is, of course, selling. This can mean selling to existing customers or, of course, attracting new ones. And it always sounds really simple, doesn't it? We want to help our clients. We've got an experienced team. We've got software in place that will enable us to deliver all sorts of cash flow insights or operational drivers. But actually getting it in front of your clients and getting them to buy is rarely very easy. Now, this is where I'm going to try and do a poll quickly, just to test you all awake. So I want to know, I'm going to launch it now. I want to know whether or not you all think you're good at selling. So can you just whack your responses in there? In theory, oh, no one's replying. So I've either done something wrong on my poll. I told you I hate technology. As the poll, can anyone put the poll answer in? Jordan, what have I done?
No, the poll's live. I think we're just waiting for people to
No one's responding. They've all gone off to make a cup of tea or a coffee.
to start clicking.
Well, fine. If no one wants to play my poll game, I'll end my poll. And I think what I'll find is that actually most guys and most of the firms that I've spoken to over the past, I mean, we've been sitting in this market now, you know, helping you guys push advisory services for over 8 years. It's not an area you guys enjoy or feel confident in. Oh, this keeps coming back. Hold on, end poll. Oh, look, you're responding now. Well done. Thanks all for playing. Suddenly I was on my own, playing a game on my own. So look, it's hovering around 30 to 40% of you say yes, and then a large proportion of you say no. You know, as I was saying, it's a common theme. It's not something you guys tend to feel particularly confident in or know where to start. And this is why so often instead we've seen firms when they go and try and sell to their small business clients, either go out on email because it feels easy, feels like a quick thing to do. And the email says, hey, we've got this new service. This is how much it is. Do you want it? But of course, email is not that effective. A lot of emails remain unopened. They end up in junk. Often they don't get replies. And it's not because your clients don't want it, don't value what you're delivering, or don't need it. It's just that email marketing to SMEs is rarely effective unless you've got an enormous budget and combine it with pay-per-click campaigns and things like retargeting. This session is not about retargeting. That would be hours on its own. But email marketing is really, really quite ineffective. And so if you've got these new services, you can't rely on it. To give you an idea of how ineffective it is, actually, just as a little stat for you, the standard open rate of any email campaign is around 15 to 25%. And then you've got a click through, which is where people are kind of asking for a call to action, of about 2.5%. So if we translate that to the standard accounting firm, and you'll all be at different sizes, appreciate that. But if you've got 200 clients, say, on your database you're emailing, 30 to 50 of them will see the email at very best. And actually 5 may click through to discuss further. And from that, if you think your conversion rates, you might be lucky to get 1, and it's just not scaling. And so we want to try and avoid that if we can. So if email doesn't work, what do you do next then? So you know you've got this new product, you know you need to get it out. Maybe you ring your clients. That's traditional selling. But let's just work it through. Let's just go back to my 200, because I'm not an accountant, therefore my maths is poor. We're going to stick with your 200 clients. And let's assume it takes you 3 calls to get hold of that client. The first 2 are quick, 1 minute, we'll leave you a message. This is what we're calling about. Give me a call back. And then the last one, when you do get hold of them, is maybe a 10-minute call to introduce this new service offering of you. It's basically 12 minutes per client at best. Trust me, I know this. We call our clients and we know how many times it takes to get hold of people. But basically means 12 minutes per client to launch your new offering. Now, if we then look at your portfolio of being 200 clients, you know, it's then looking at a total of about 40 hours. So basically a week. And it's like, how many hours spare do you actually have to be able to take that on? Who's got the capacity in your team to be able to take that on? Is it you? Have you got a week spare? And so if looking across those 2 methods, email's not working, and then cold calling strategy is not going to work. But actually, even if you did venture down the cold calling strategy, which is one of the questions that popped in the beginning of this, is actually, what are you saying? What's your pitch? Who in your team has the ability to do those cold calls? You know, you've got that lovely week free, brilliant. I'm going to go and say what? What are they actually selling? One of the questions before actually was, what is the advisory offering? Is there a blanket offering that you're going to offer to everybody? Are you going to tie it into a bronze package, silver package, you know, limited package, whatever kind of advisory package you're starting with? And actually, how do you know which package to pitch to which client? And how's it priced? And actually, is it something that can even be pitched in a 10-minute cold call? And really, without all these questions answered really clearly and concisely, any plans to sell advisory services in either of these ways will fall completely flat, because selling is hard. But actually, without these questions answered and without absolute clarity here, it's absolutely impossible. Now, I probably sound like I'm putting you off. I'm not. Firms absolutely can scale advisory and should, for all the reasons that we all know. You know, revenue, retention, referrals, staff growth, etc., etc. but it's got to be a structured, focused, strategic sales process in order to be successful. Your clients do need to be sold to. This is new to them, but the sales process cannot be based on email marketing or just, let's just go and pick up the phone and speak to clients. It needs to be much more considered and much more data-led. So over the next few slides, I'm going to give you my view with my experience on how I would approach it. Some tricks of the trade and some simple processes for your practice so that you can do it. So first up, if I can move slides, there we go, is this. Let's cover how you sell. Now, there are a multitude of methodologies and techniques out there. There's transactional selling, solution selling, consultative selling, provocative selling, collaborative selling, can I think of any more? Social selling, partnership selling, high pressure selling. I mean, there are millions of different ways of approaching it, but let's just keep it really, really simple. I am not wanting or expecting any of you to flip into being Jordan Belfort, you know, Wolf of Wall Street character, at the end of this session. And actually, those days of the penny share, bully boy sales tactics are well and truly behind us. But also the type of selling I want you to adopt is a scalable, honest, decent, simple way that you can take your accounting firm into positioning your new products. So to do that, I'm going to introduce you to the art of solution selling. It is by far and away the simplest and best way to sell. It will fit with the values of your accounting firm, and it's actually the way that I've always worked. So it's definitely where my experience does lie. And actually the process I'm going to give you to follow solution selling is called spin technique. Has anybody actually heard of it? Ping if you have in the chat box, if you ever come across spin selling before. Now, I know you're all sitting in here going, she's teaching us how to be salespeople. I'm not. I'm just giving you a really simple process to follow that will enable you to have the conversations that a salesperson would have. So why is spin so good? Well, spin selling is a process that's very, very easy to adopt and can be managed across your teams, and it will give you the highest success rate in terms of closing any of your deals. It's a process that basically works on maneuvering your clients into a buying journey for whatever it is you're offering without your clients even knowing. It won't feel like selling to either you or them, and it feels really, really consultative, and it's got very simple steps that you follow so that you know that you followed the process effectively. Let me explain it. It might sound really obvious when you're selling, but you've got to understand where your person you're selling to, oh my God, explain that better. You've got to understand where the person you're selling to is at. One of the biggest mistakes so many people take when selling, and actually this does happen in accounting firms, I've seen it, is that they pile in, they get hold of them on the phone, they pile in with a great solution, telling them how amazing it is, how it's solved all their problems, how it's just absolutely the thing they need to do. Because possibly the solution you're selling is great and it is what they need to do. But without them being in the headspace or in the position to actually take it on board, it will simply fall on deaf ears. And so spin selling is about putting them into the right frame of mind to take it on board. Think of it from a car perspective. You know, however nice and shiny a new car is, you're not going to buy a car off the cuff without recognizing why yours no longer works for you or where the problems lie in yours. And this is what spin selling enables you to focus on. It enables you to pause, understand where they are, identify opportunities and hooks from which you can hang the solution you are offering to make it a very, very simple transactional process. Let's go through it in these stages. So you can see on screen here, first up is S, and it's for situation. So start your call with just understanding exactly where they're at. Think about questions like, how are you? How's your business going? How many staff members do you have? How's each site going? You know, what's happening? Is there anything we need to know about? Those sorts of very generic, high level kind of information gathering questions. And once you've got that, you then, and it's about making them start to think about their business, we then move into the P. And P is really, really critical to this. And it's about you nailing down what their current problems are in their business, what's keeping them up at night, what they're worried about, where the risks in their business lie. Now, why do we do this? I'm going to branch off for a second and talk about vitamin or painkiller. Now, some of you may have heard me talk about this before. A vitamin solution in any sales process is a nice to have. So think about a vitamin itself, and why it's called a vitamin is you can, you can take it or leave it. It's not going to have a great bearing on your health. You'll still wake up in the morning. You'll still live your life. You'll still function. It's a nice to have. It makes you feel good having a vitamin with your breakfast. A painkiller, however, is just that. If you've got a headache, you will do whatever you can to get rid of it, and you will reach for those pills, and it will be the absolute, oh, there's a hand raised. Jordan, can you monitor hand raising if somebody needs something? Sorry, it's just a hand waved at me. Painkiller, you know, it's what was I talking about? It's painkiller. You know, you've got a headache, you're reaching for those tablets, you will take it. It is top of your priority because you want to get it, you want to get it gone. It's urgent and you need help with it. Painkiller solutions, therefore, whenever you're selling anything, are always easier to sell than vitamins because they have a higher value. Now, if you equate that to advisory services for a second, is your offering a vitamin? Is the offering you are putting in front of your client a nice to have? Maybe it's a report that might be nice to look at each month. Or are you delivering a painkiller where you're directly targeting a client's pain, the problem they're actually facing, because you will always be more effective with the latter. And this is why the P in this spin process is so important when you're talking to your clients. And it's about identifying that pain so that you can focus in on it when you do come to position the solution and offering and services that you have. So for example, pain questions are quite simple, but how are sales going? How's cash flow looking? What are you worried about at the moment? You can say to people, what's your biggest pain at the moment? If you really want to be quite logical about it. What's the biggest risk to the business at the moment? How are you planning on growing? What's stopping you, etc., etc. Really drilling into what is their big one focus, which is causing them a headache at the moment. And it's really important as they do discuss these problems, actually, not to launch straight into solutions. Again, you have to be quite reserved with spin, hold back. You have to go through the process and don't discuss them because you'll want to leap in and go, oh, we can solve that. This is what we'll do. But they're not yet ready to buy. And this is really important. Go through the process. Don't jump in too quickly. Solutions will come later on. Once you have nailed their pain, though, you then want to move into I, which is implication. And this is a powerful little beast of a question. And it will become really powerful if you get pushback when you deliver your solution later. Understanding the implication of the pain will make them prioritize solving it. And if the implication is high, of course, the value to what you're offering is equally high. So it makes for a really easy conversation as into what happens next. And it's one that will be really completely effortless on your part of moving your client into accepting the new advisory solutions you're putting in front of them. So a good example of this is something like, how are those sales going to impact your cash flow? How is your cash flow going to impact next month and beyond, for example? Or that thing you just told me in the business, what's the impact it's going to have? And what is the impact to you if you do run out of cash? You know, don't be afraid to ask that next question on so that you really start to make them think about the implication of not dealing with the problem that they have. Last up, and this is why it's a very simple process and a simple qualification for any of your clients that you talk to, is their need. It's where you bring them full circle and position what you've just discussed so that they recognize the value of moving into the solution phase. So think, based on what you've just told me, sales are down, which are going to impact your cash flow over the coming weeks. If you had something that told you by how much and we worked together to solve it, would that be a huge help? But it doesn't always have to be negative. And I think that's the other thing. I'll come to the advisory offerings further down the line. But, you know, if they've got a big client on, for example, and they've told you they've won a big business, they're worried about juggling staff, they're not sure they've got enough headcount for it, still a pain, you can position it as something like you've won a big new contract, not sure if you can support it with your existing staffing. If you could understand the feasibility of hiring 2 new people, would that be of benefit to you? So take whatever they've done, turn it into a question, say, look, is this something that you want to get on and deal with? So those 4 steps are the spin selling process. And I know it may feel completely alien to you guys, but use the process as a backbone for any of the conversations you have with your clients, because I promise you, you'll be staggered at how much more effective your calls are. It is really simple to follow through the steps. And actually with managing your team, if you're getting your team to do this, ask them to tell you about their situation. What's the pain? What's the implication? What's the need that needs to happen? And it will enable you to manage down to ensure your team are having the same conversations. So now you know how to get your clients buying or how to qualify your clients. There's a couple of other processes that I'd like to head into. So into next is this one, pricing. Now I did have a poll here. I'm not trusting my polls, so I'm going to ignore my polls. But I think pricing remains as an ongoing discussion for most firms. SMEs have really adopted, I'm telling you what you already know, but SMEs have really adopted cloud over the past few years, which is great because there's so much opportunity in which to deliver advisory services. There's so many more clients sitting in your portfolio. And of course, you've got real-time data up for grabs. But the volume of these clients makes deciding on pricing it, on what you're offering, so much harder because, of course, your portfolios range from small 1 to 5 employee businesses right the way through to 50+ employee businesses. And of course, the needs of what an advisory service is across that client base is equally broad, and therefore pricing is something that's very hard to pin down, and I know tends to fill up most conversations in the monthly meetings. But it is so important to get it right for scaling advisory services. It's the conversation that probably needs to happen. Now, bearing in mind, we just talked about spin technique and that process, that moves you into the world of solution selling. And this almost starts to put you down a corridor in terms of what pricing should look like, because if you're solution selling, you're selling to a client based on a specific plan. This means things like package advisory solutions just won't work. And by this, I mean things like bronze, silver, gold. I'm not a huge fan of them anyway. I never have been. I'm always quite controversial with this, but I think they always end up with you guys working for free. I also just don't think they're scalable for the reasons I just talked about. But I'll save that rant for another day. But spin selling, if you followed the process and you really pinpointed somebody's pain, and then you've started to deliver a broader bronze packaged solution that includes lots of elements that don't directly impact that pain, you've immediately weakened the value of the solution you've presented. And therefore you'll be less effective at closing that client into taking on the solution you've delivered. And therefore your opportunity to help that client will be lost. So my recommendation for this is, bearing in mind you're now working on a pain, establishing their pain and a solution sell, is that you need to focus in on that pain and deliver the valued solution for that pain and price for that project alone. So if I think back, to bring it to life a bit, if I think back to that one I was just talking about, the new members of staff, you could say something like, so we need to pull together a cash flow forecast. It includes those new members of staff that you want to bring on, and we need to make sure that you can afford it. It's going to take me 2 to 3 hours. It's going to cost X. I'll have it done by Thursday, and we'll meet again, and then we'll go through it. Okay. And if they're not okay with it, by the way, this is where you pull out your implication card that you picked out when you're doing spin. It's your powerful card at this point, and why it is really important to know it, because then you can return with, look, okay, if you don't do this, you run a real risk of cash flow problems. And the implication of that is that you will miss payroll next month, is a good example. Oh, my dog's got that was the postman outside. Every day, it's whenever I'm on demos, the postman turns up. But what I was going to say is, if you are challenging, by the way, and you have used that implication, if they haven't just gone ahead and said yes, which, by the way, they probably will if you do spin, so be really confident. But if you had to go back in and say, look, this is the implication if you don't do this, stay really strong and determined when you push back. It is the thing that they need to do. That's why you've recommended it. And I think back when COVID first hit last March, we referred to our accountants as the NHS for small businesses. I still stand by that. I think it's a good analogy for where you guys fit and where your small businesses see you. And I think you've got to think, when a doctor delivers, a treatment after a diagnosis, they don't falter when they deliver that treatment, however nasty the treatment is. And it's that same level of determination you need to have, because you are the expert and you have recommended the solution because of what is happening in their business and because of the pain that they're currently experiencing. Just a side note, while we are still on pricing, I must run out of time, which I've got to keep going. Just a side note to talk about pricing is, I know that many of you will want to lock clients into recurring revenue advisory plans, but be patient. I have watched many of you go through this over the past 8 years, and I think going after the individual project is the right way. Going after advisory from day dot tends to be less effective. So deliver a solution to their initial pain and deal with that immediate project in hand, and then start to talk about extending the time you work together. It will naturally evolve through the value that you're delivering. And some clients may even take 1 to 2 projects to engage with you monthly, but they will get there. And it's just part of the kind of journey, if you like. So The critical part of the process here is to be really clear on pricing. To follow the spin process, and you'll be quoting per project. You need to enable you and your teams to easily be able to quote. So whether that's an hourly rate or by task, that's up to you, but it's really important that in your firm there's a consistent and clear approach to pricing so that your team are able to do this and you are confident on the calls to be able to say, right, this is what needs to happen. I'll get into the partner bottleneck in a minute, but what you don't want to do is spin sell, identify the pain, deliver the solution, agree what the solution is, and then say, oh, hold on, I just need to go and get the cost of this signed off. Let me give you a call back. Because as soon as you've got to go and get a price, or as soon as you've got to go and email it to them, the conversion rates on that conversation will plummet. I mean, you know what it's like when you're in a shop and if you have to ask about the price of something, you kind of just think, well, it's expensive, and you start to talk yourself out of it and you just leave. Don't. Strike while the iron's hot, strike while you've got your client, enable you and your teams to be able to price then and there. And even if you do have to give a range of pricing, people are comfortable with that. They are. I've seen it work over and over. So can't spend too much time on here. I could do, and I'm sure you've all got millions of questions, but spend some time and effort in your own firm here to be able to enable your teams and your clients to be able to follow this process through simply and consistently. Okay, dokes. Where are we going next? Well, this one. We know how to talk to your clients. You've got pricing, but where do you start? And I know, again, that was one of the questions at the beginning. You know, you've got these portfolios. Who do you speak to get going? You know what you're going to say. You haven't got 40 hours a week, but you know what you are going to say when you decide to speak to the right client. And I think however many clients you have, affording 12 minutes per client, even if you spread it over the next 52 weeks, it's still a challenge. And if you're spin selling to them, you're pretty much already at capacity. So you need a process that's going to tell you who to ring, when to ring, and ideally automatically flags those that are ripe for taking that phone call. Maybe they've got a pain and you've got a system that will go, hold on, this client looks like it's in pain. And then you can make that conversation based around that. Let me spend it further. I'm going to take you out of accountant world for a second for this. The most successful businesses out there have got sales activities that are built around automated prompts. So using tech to flag when their prospects are most likely to buy whatever it is they're selling. Think about car insurance. They nudge you when your insurance is due. But that's quite easy because, to my point now, if my car insurance is due, I'm looking to buy anyway. So we need to take that theory and go one step further and think about nudging clients who aren't necessarily looking to buy, aren't Googling advisory services with my accountant, but who need it. There's a good example of this actually in our VC group. There's a business called Paddle, and they're a tech business who offer payment solutions to SaaS businesses. They've got really, really clever robots that are out scraping job sites 24/7 across the globe. And they're just looking across these job sites to see if any SaaS business posts a job for a sales manager. The reason they do this is because Paddle know if a SaaS business has hired a sales manager, it's likely they'll be taking on customers. And therefore, it's likely that they'll need to implement a payment system so that they can take payment for those from those customers. Paddle then also combine that information with a load of information from Companies House to identify the size of this prospect, the size of the business, contacts, kind of the stage they are in terms of VC funding, things like that. And then all of that information is packaged together to identify the value of that lead itself. That information is sent then through to their sales teams to then make very few but very targeted calls. Now, what's amazing about Paddle, which is why I talk about them, is their conversion rates are well over 50%. I mean, most months they're up in the 70s because it's so finely tuned and so targeted. And they've got a teeny tiny sales team as a result. And now data-led sales campaigns like this are always going to give you a better outcome and save time. And so it's this approach that I think you guys have to take when going into your own portfolio, because you don't have big sales teams. You don't have loads of time. Now, this is where I have to go ad break, because this is where I'm going to show you through our own practice analysis tool portfolio, because it's built to surface trigger information for you guys within your portfolio about your clients, giving you that same laser focused approach. It's not a product sell. I didn't come into this session today to sit here and pitch products. You're welcome to talk to me about all of our products after this. But this is very much about you guys and making you think slightly differently about how you approach advisory. But I am going to use one of our products as the backdrop for this next 5 minutes. So go with me. Right, I'm just going to minimize. Oh no, I'm not quite yet. Let me explain it first. Oh, is that beautiful blank screen I've got there? Brilliant. So portfolio. Oh, you see it pings up. Well, as if by magic. There we go. I did say I didn't like technology people on these slides. Okay, thanks. So portfolio. What is portfolio? Portfolio is powered by our 5-way forecasting tool, Predict. And portfolio will automatically generate a report based on the next 6 months of predicted performance for every single business sitting in your portfolio. It's done automatically. You don't need to do anything. You don't have to create anything or add to anything. It's completely time-free from your perspective. Now, these predictions run across every client's predicted cash flow, P&L activity, balance sheet, and with all of those predictions, it will then weight and score their predicted performance, looking at clients that are at risk and at clients that, of course, are ripe for growth. When we look at the risk clients, of course, portfolio is going to pinpoint those pain points where you can basically identify those ripe for that conversation. The report that portfolio generates can be run at a frequency to suit your practice. It doesn't need to be done every month, but it will enable you to have data to drive exactly which clients you're talking to. Okay, so let me just open it up so I can show you the report. Okay, so here is portfolio. This is an example accounting firm. There's all of the clients that are sitting in this particular portfolio. You can see listed down the left-hand side. They've been connected up to portfolio from Predict. Predict on that connection has then generated the 6 months worth of predictions for every client. Those predictions are brought into this report. So you can see there's all the clients, there's the predicted performances across the cash, P&L and balance sheet activities for each individual client. And the predicted thing is the key. We're predicting where they're going. We're not looking at a health score of where they've been. So from a cash prediction perspective, we're looking at the next 6 months and looking to see if there's any negative cash balances in any of their accounts. If they do, if they've got 0, they're a green. If they've got 1 negative cash balance, they're considered an amber, medium risk client. If they've got 2 or more, they are considered, of course, a red, high risk cash flow client. We're then looking across the P&L and looking at predicting how is their performance looking, how's their income looking, how's the proportion of income to invoices actually from a health perspective, what's the level of the bills sitting in their cost of sales or expenses. We've got predicted bank account balances. We're looking across things like liability and even down to things like liquidity ratio. These predictions are basically individually weighted, added together and scored to produce on the home screen what you can see here, which is your RAG status of every single one of your clients in your practice. This RAG status will start to indicate those that are ripe, that have got pains that you could really start having that first conversation with, or of course are ripe for growth and they will have pain around growth. What you can do from within here is actually look at each individual client. So that report will pinpoint your clients for this month or this quarter that you need to speak to. You come into here, you drop down the client dashboard. So we just go to Lemonade Bubble. And in here, you can see it's then pinpointing exactly where the pain points are with this business. Now this, and I will come to this in a minute, is in addition to the spin qualification. We need to get the client in this buying journey. This is just giving you information about this client so that you know that they do need you, which will give you confidence when you're talking to them. But the dashboard will pinpoint exactly where the challenge areas are. It will even give you some action points to look at so that you need to focus on with them or to qualify whether or not the data is sitting correctly. On a month-by-month basis, you can come in here in the report and actually look at which clients have moved. So clients that have moved to high risk, for example. This is a 1 monthly report. If you get it more than monthly or quarterly, it'll then give you the clients at risk. But then we can go and see, right, who are the high risk clients sitting there at the moment? We can say, look, gin and tonic, got a predicted cash shortfall. Great, let's go and give them a call. And to go through the spin technique and pinpoint exactly how we can help them. This does so much more in terms of practice benchmarking, etc. But that's not part of today's conversation. So I'm going to skip straight back to my slides. for now. Hold on, have I gone back to slides? I think I've gone back to slides. Cool. So we've got the sales process. You know what you're saying. You know how to qualify your clients. You've got your pricing sorted. You've got your target list of clients generated by portfolio where you can pinpoint exactly who needs your help when. But who now does it? Who deals with it? Repeatedly in accounting firms, we've seen the responsibility for growing advisory services end up on partners' desks. And it's you guys on the call quite often because you've got experience in this space. But of course, that creates a bottleneck in its own right. And you have got capable people in your team. And I think with tech now, you can enable them to help you scale these services. But particularly, actually, if we think about portfolio, as your client calls can now be data-led via portfolio, that first call can be and should be hosted by the client account manager or the person who looks after that client. Even if they've only spoken to that small business about compliance work previously, the data that's in the dashboard in portfolio will give them enough information to be prepared for the call to enable them to investigate. And if they combine that with going through the spin process that I just talked about, they absolutely can be first line support for identifying what happens next. Now, I know it's not a perfect world, so it is inevitable that some of these projects will get pushed to partner level. And what happens next will end up on partner desk. But the triaging by using your team to go through this process, follow the spin, identify the pain with those clients that have been identified by the data in your portfolio will enable you to have an effective triaging system that means you can scale this repeatedly and easily without any kind of Wolf of Wall Street selling, as bashing the phones. I should add at this point, because you're going to start reaching out to these clients, because you may have other members of your team starting to reach out to clients, that a CRM in place is quite vital. You need it for efficiency. You'll need it for portfolio growth because you have to enable yourself and your teams to track the conversations that you've had. Look at historical conversations and actually set tasks for follow-up, callbacks. Maybe you're waiting for a partner piece of information. Maybe you are waiting for them to approve it because they actually haven't said they're going to give you the go-ahead yet. It also will give visibility of the practice if you've got more than one person involved in this process, which it's likely you will. You'll have maybe a partner and the client account manager. It's really important that everybody can see the conversations that are happening so that things aren't missed. But it'll also enable you to review some of the junior members of the team and how they're talking to their clients, and you can just see the efficiency in the way that they're working. Now, no sales team would ever run without a CRM. If you haven't got one, even though you don't have a sales team, definitely time to invest in one. I've got loads of recommendations if anybody does want to know, and there are free ones. It doesn't have to cost you an arm and a leg at all. So just holler if you ever want any recommendations from me. Last but not least on this piece, and I know I've covered quite a lot in this session, but goal setting. It's really important. The data you can see in that portfolio report will actually really easily enable you to set really clear goals at client manager level. I need to put my teeth back in. Client manager level, at team level, at company level. You can see the opportunity that's lying in your business. And by setting the goals based on those opportunities you can see by predicting the next 6 months, it will enable you and the team to kind of really know what they're gunning for. And it can become a company strategy or practice strategy. Without those goals and targets, you'll just find that the growth conversations won't happen because the conversations will revert as normal. So to change the behavior across the practice, it's really important now to set those goals and use portfolio to set realistic goals based on what's actually happening in your own portfolio. Okay, this is the last slide. This is the good news, because then we've got time for questions. And this is probably the biggest. It is last but not least. It's like my position in today's workshop. It's closing. No scaling process is going to work unless you and the team are confident enough to ask for the business. It's the good old cash transaction. And this is so often where people fall over. It's often perceived as the scariest part. We're not very good at asking for money, which is why you guys often work for free, which I think was on another slide saying don't do it. But if you don't ask, you don't get. And it's really, really, really important to be quite decisive at this stage. And so there's 3 simple steps to follow, and they echo what you've done at the beginning of the conversation with the client. So first up, summarize their pain, the problem they have, and the impact on their business. 2, position your solution really, really clearly and concisely. And 3, assumptively close it. And by assumptively close, it's things like, I'm assuming this makes sense to you too, you're happy to go ahead. It's the most powerful close. It's the one that should be delivered by experts, and you are the expert in this space, and so use it. It's the one that often comes the most natural to people anyway. But the critical thing is confidence during these stages. It's don't overtalk, don't apologize for how this is the solution. It's not your fault. You're providing them a solution to the pain, and be really, really crystal clear with what you're saying, because you know it's the right thing to do, because that's why you've suggested it. Don't hesitate when it comes to the close, and this will also take discipline. Don't give them an opt-out. I call it the woolly opt-out with my team, but don't do things like, would you like to go ahead, or would you like to think about it? It simply doesn't need the or. It gives them an out and thinks that there is another option when there's not. You've recommended this as the solution because it's what they need to do. You're not selling things that they don't need, you're selling what they do need. So keep it really simple and clean and decisive. Do you agree that we need to prioritize this forecast and meet again on Thursday to review and plan your next steps? As simple as that. Very clean, very in control, and very directed. And finally, once you have asked for the business, stop talking. And that's from me as well. Stop talking. Let them breathe and just think. Silence genuinely is probably one of the most powerful tools that you can use at the point of close. It's not about trying to manipulate them or make them feel awkward into agreeing. It's just let them absorb it, let them think, and let them just make sure that they feel like they've made the decision. That's it. So you're the expert, you position what they need to do, they will agree to do it. So just sit and wait for them to say yes. There we go. That is through to Q&A. That's the simple art of selling. There was so much in this. I'm really conscious of that. But it is really simple. And I think most of you sell every day just without thinking about it. But it's about identifying those clients using tech available, following the simple spin process to get your client in the same mindset as you, positioning your solution, and then just asking for the business. Okay, over to questions. Jordan, are you going to lead this?
Yeah, I can do. First of all, thank you very much for that presentation. That was incredibly insightful and valuable. There's been heaps of engagement in the chat. A couple of questions in the Q&A. The first one is, how does spin selling relate to trying to get new clients?
Exactly the same. So a client will come in and quite often clients don't know what they're after. And especially in accounting firms, they quite often come in asking for compliance services. So utilize spin to extend their breadth of where they're thinking of what you can deliver. So find out, that's fine, you need compliance, that's okay, but what else is going on in your practice, in your business? Where are you planning on going? What challenge are you facing at the moment? And then immediately you can start to hang your advisory solutions off those hooks. So it's actually probably more critical at that point than it is anywhere else.
Perfect. All right. A question from Sarah. Can this also work for retail and e-commerce clients?
It can work for any client at all. We use it on our accountants. You guys, I'm sure, have been through spin selling, but it can be used to any client whatsoever. It's just the logic of getting them down a funnel of understanding the big picture. What's the challenge? What's the implication of that? Right, let's find a solution.
Cool. And then another question from Sarah, which is, how does, I'm guessing this is about the Futrli part you were showing with the dashboard. How does this differ from other apps such as Dext and Xavier Analytics? Yeah,
so it's the prediction. It's based on what's happening in the future, not what's happened in the past. And I think that's critical when you're trying to identify a small business owner's pain, because actually their pains are rarely in the past in terms of being able to position advisory services. Where actually, if you can go in with the understanding of where their pain is going to be, it enables you and the team to tee yourselves up to plan when you're going to speak to that client based on where their pain points are going to be, and prioritize your existing portfolio to just position your value at the right time.
Perfect. And Sarah's just clarified, sorry, her earlier question about e-commerce and retail was regarding the portfolio thing.
Yes. Well? Yeah, it can be it's on any client whatsoever. Yeah, so it works across the board.
Brilliant. There's been a few questions in the chat as well. A lot of people asking for those free CRM recommendations.
Okay, fine. I mean, my one off the top of my, So there's, I mean, the likes of the HubSpots and the Salesforces all say they have free accounts. This is where HubSpot will kill me. But yeah, oh, there you are, Pixie for CRM. But, well done. But you know, they're quite big and meaty, and actually just, I think those big boy CRMs are just unnecessary for the majority of accounting firms unless you've got a team dedicated to running them. But the likes of Pixie or the likes of Pipedrive, I'm a big fan of, is a really, really good option. Very, very easy to use, and it's completely free of charge.
Nice. All right. Thank you for sharing. There was another question from Jane. Does this application only integrate with Xero if it relies on Predict? I have clients that use MYOB. I think that's an Australian one.
Oh, it's an Australian. Yeah, we do. We have a so at the moment we don't integrate with MYOB, which is mind your own business for all of the UK customers. That's what it stands for. It's brilliant. But it is a competing software to Xero over in Australia. Not yet, but it will do. And in fact, we are going to stretch our integrations from just, poor Melbourne in lockdown. We're going to extend our integrations to include the likes of Sage, QBO Desktop. At the moment, it's just Xero and QuickBooks.
Cool.
Watch this space.
And I think that also answers Vijay's question, which is, where is this information picked up from? It's coming from the ledger, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, Jane, it will include the MYOB essentials.
Perfect. All right. Any final questions from anybody? We've got a few more minutes, so if you've got any final questions for Helen, please stick them in the chat box or the Q&A box. We'll do our best to answer those. Whilst we're waiting for those to come through, sorry, Helen, you were saying something?
I was going to say, if anybody does want to know more about, see, questions coming in now, I can fill. If anyone wants to know anything more about Predict, Portfolio even, or Predict, just email me directly, helen@futrli.com. I'll happily take you through it. But price-wise, you know, it's £5 a month. It really is not expensive for any of these things. Oh, thank you, Jordan. I think there were a couple, I think I saw a few other questions come in. No problem, Sarah. Hi, Sarah Harkness. Long time no speak. I like this. These are all names of people I've not seen for ages.
A question from Vijay. Can it be manually added if there's no integration?
No, not at the moment.
Okay.
Because the Predict works, so Predict, which powers Portfolio, works on automated predictions, which are made across the transactions sitting in the P&L and the invoices and bills sitting in Xero and QuickBooks. And yes, Pipedrive. Well done, John.
Perfect. All right. Any final questions? I'm just going to share my screen very quickly to close things off. Question from Emmanuel: does Pixie integrate with GoProposal? Yes, through Zapier. We have an integration through Zapier with GoProposal, so it's not direct, but it works just the same. The clients get created and the services all get scheduled as well. A question in the Q&A for you, Helen: is that £5 per client, and does that include the basic Futrli, or is that the add-on?
So the £5, it depends what, I mean, talk to us. We can put a whole host of offers together. But £5 per client is for the report, depending on how many people you put through, and it doesn't have to be done monthly. It can just be a one-off. And then Predict itself actually only comes in, it's the cheapest prediction tool in the market, but it's about £15 per client per month is Predict.
Perfect. Can Pixie be used for year-end documents for self-assessment? Colette, if you don't mind just expanding on that question slightly, when you say can be used for year-end documents, if you can just expand on what you mean there, and I can hopefully answer that question for you. In the meantime, just to wrap things up, Helen, thank you very much for your time and for sharing all of those insights. I put Helen's email address in the chat, so if anybody wants to follow up, request a copy of the slides or ask any further questions about the processes that Helen's been sharing, please feel free to reach out to her there. Just very quickly, don't forget to check out our workflow template library. As Helen was speaking, I actually did check the Futrli template that we have in our library, and you can see it here. And one of the things included in this template is actually an email template. So a lot of this stuff is already ready for you to send out to your clients in order to get things like Futrli set up and offered to your clients. So feel free to check out these workflow templates. I'll share a link to those in the chat. If you can hear a strange sound, my window cleaner has just arrived and they're currently cleaning that window. Great timing, guys. So thank you very much to everybody that's joined us this morning for this session and for all of the sessions. If you've done all 4 sessions, then wow, thank you for being with us this whole time. Colette, your question was year-end document collection. Yeah, absolutely. So within your year-end workflows in Pixie, you can automate those emails to go out and request that information. You can set up reminders, and your clients will be able to upload it directly into Pixie without needing to log in with the username or password. As completely passwordless, which makes it so simple for those guys to just drag and drop their year-end files, tax return info, and anything else into Pixie, ready for you and the team to work on. Great. Looks like there's no further questions, so I'm going to wrap things up now. Helen, thanks again for your time.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you to everybody that's joined us. Hope you will enjoy the rest of your day and your week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.